everybody. Thank you for joining us for our latest Train Like a Trooper podcast. And this is another one in a series that we've been doing called Legacy Podcasts, where we are talking to members of the patrol who are related to each other, who have kind of made this a family affair. And today we have two very special guests with us. They're both captains on the Highway Patrol, Captain Ronnie Hampton and Captain Scott Hampton. And we thank both of you for being here with us.
Thank you for having us. I'd be here.
So, Ronnie, I'll call you by your first name so you can tell who we're talking to. Tell us kind of how you came to be in the patrol and sort of why you chose this career path.
Oh, okay. So, our grandfather was in law enforcement, and he was a sheriff down in Bryan County, southeast Oklahoma. And then my father followed him. He was a police officer, military police officer, a Durant police officer, and then he became sheriff. And so I think we were both kind of, heading that direction. The Caddo Kennefic deal was really kind of the thing that made me say this is which police agency I want to go to work for, because it was a pretty shocking deal.
How old were you when that happened?
8.
You were 8. Okay.
And so just after the shootout happened, and the public information folks with the Highway Patrol were there, and there's just so many troopers there, and I don't know, it's kind of a moving. I remember watching the 10 o'clock news, and I was just like, I really started paying attention to the troopers. Of course, a couple of years later, my dad became sheriff, and I basically hung out at the courthouse all the time. And so I got to see a lot of different police agencies. And the one thing about the troopers back then is they were very strict on wearing hats. If they got out of that car, they had their hat on. If they took somebody into jail, or they walked into the courthouse, they had their hats on. They didn't take them off. And it's just something about that made me go, those folks are different from everybody else. And so that was kind of my path. And it took me till 1997 to get there. So I did a little time at the Bryan County Sheriff's Department right out of high school, working in the jail for a couple of years. And then I went to the Durant Police Department, and I worked there for 7 years and was a sergeant there. And then I got offered a job with the Highway Patrol, and it's going on 30 years now.
Wow. What score are you out of, Tim?
49.
49. And for our viewers that don't know what the Caddo Kennefic thing is, can you summarize that for them real quick?
Sure. There was back in the 1970s, the mid-1970s, there were a lot of escapes from the McAllister State Prison. So this was one of many that caused the patrol to jump into big, large manhunts with, a lot of troopers. But Dennis and Lancaster, that's their last names. One was in for robbery, and Dennis was in for multiple murders. They didn't know each other prior to prison, so they get into prison, and they had a prison guard that was actually playing cards with them, and so they got indebted. He got indebted to them, so he left a door open so they could escape, and so they tunneled out. Make a long story short, to speed it up, over about 34 days, they went through a reign of terror. Basically killing everybody they come in contact with. I believe they had a total of 8 victims in 4 different states. And when they returned back to Oklahoma, one of our guys that we both worked for, Mike Williams, got called and found their car that they had took from a lady that they murdered out in Alabama. And so that the patrol operated a lot different back then, kind of what I call old school manhunts. Where we would bring in a lot of troopers. We would have fixed roadblocks, and we would have stationary roadblocks. And so we did that for about 3 days. And then as soon as they, I call that, popped their head up, and took a rancher somewhat hostage for a little bit, and then got in his pickup, he immediately got loose and called the Highway Patrol and said, hey, these guys are northbound on Highway 48. And within 2 minutes, because we had so many troopers there, they come in contact with 2 of our troopers, and a gunfight ensued by Kennefic, and both those troopers were executed on the road. And so they stole all of the troopers' weapons and ammunition, along with what they already had, and they started traveling into Caddo. And of course, we had tons of aircraft back then, and our airplane spotted it and then started moving troopers in on them. And another gunfight took place, and they shot 2 more troopers, and one of those dying. So we have a total of 3 dead and one critically injured. And then other troopers took them out and killed them. And so it was just a really moving thing, especially for the people who lived down in Bryan County at that time. For those 3 days, most people slept in the hallway of their home. Just to kind of keep the family unit, together. And so a lot of news coverage on that deal. And that was kind of the deal where I said, that's what I'm going to do.
Interesting. So did you tend to follow your brother around when you were younger?
So, yes, I remember growing up, I spent a lot of time in jails. I remember the new Bryan County Jail was being built, and I spent a lot of time back in there, different times back then, because we ran around with the inmates.
Yeah, you probably have to qualify that statement when you tell people that, right?
Yes.
Spent time in jail?
Spent a lot of time in there, spent a lot of time messing with seeing how everything operates inside a jail. Still remember a traffic stop when I was with my dad when he was sheriff, and being told to hide down on the floorboard. And it was just a different time back then. They were never off duty, and as most of our sheriffs now, they answer to their people. So when I started at Durant PD, it seems like my career I've kind of always taken a position he was leaving open. So he got hired with the patrol going into the 49th Academy. I was hired at Durant PD and started there, which made the 4th one of us in our lineage to work for Durant PD. And I stayed there for 3 years till I was accepted to the 52nd Academy. And main thing that made me want to transition from Durant to the patrol is, one, I would hear his stories. I'd go over to Choctaw County and ride with him when he was a trooper over there. And then the thing that sticks to my mind the most, and I tell all of our new guys that are applying to us coming from agencies, is when you're sitting at the edge of a city limits watching everybody blow by at Mach 10 going to a significant event, you're sitting there. And with the patrol, you go where we're needed. So I've always enjoyed that about the patrol, and it was one of the main driving factors that made me leave the police department to go to the patrol.
Did you guys always kind of know growing up that you wanted to go into law enforcement in some form or fashion, or did you entertain other options?
I never entertained anything, but I also, in the teenage years, wasn't 100% sure which path I was going to take. Funny story about him growing up. We lived in a neighborhood, and we always, would ride bicycles around and play cops and robbers, and he had to always be the police.
So you had to be the robber?
I was usually the robber. Yeah, it worked out well. But a lot of stories from back home of people we grew up with that remember those stories of him running around, being the police, and
at an early age,
us doing that stuff in our neighborhood, and we're still doing it.
What's the age difference between you guys?
Right at 6.
Oh, different. Okay.
Very good. So then when you're going through an academy, and you have a brother on the patrol, what is that experience like? Does that make it better for you? Or?
So I was telling somebody the other day in the agency that had a loved one applying for a position within the patrol, and it's the exact opposite of what anyone thinks. There is no special treatment that comes. It's more the other direction. Mm-hmm. And Ronnie's always ran a tight ship with whatever area he's working, and it's just not what you would think of as, they're gonna breeze by everything. There's more eyes on you when you've got that going on. And then when my wife had come to the patrol in the 57th Academy.
Yes, there is another Hampton also. Yes. Your wife, Ashley, is a trooper as well. She didn't want to join us for the podcast, but yes. I told her we would talk about her.
Yeah, so she got on in the 57th. And there is perks to having, because you have knowledge. With him having attended a patrol school, you get, hey, here's what's coming. This is how this is going to work. This is what, they're probably going to do this during the night. And so you had some benefits of that. However, when your lead TAC, who was you know, the late Johnny Christian, who we was raised with, Marine, very, very tough standard individual. He was the head tack in our patrol school, and yeah, there was no getting through, you know, and you're held to a higher standard. They make that well known in patrol school that, hey, we're gonna see if you can handle this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I can't say that there's been a whole lot of things that benefit you, you know, from having a family lineage in the patrol. And I know we have a lot of brothers and a lot of family in the patrol, but yeah, I mean the perk is just having the knowledge if you're about to go through something that they might have went through. It's nice to be able to draw on that experience.
Ronnie, did you do anything after your patrol school experience to dissuade him from going to patrol school, or were you excited for him to get on?
Yeah, I was excited for him to get on. Kind of a funny story. So when he was under FPD, he had a pursuit with some bad guys out of Dallas, Texas. And they crashed out in the county. So I got called out because I was on call that night. And they said, hey, the FPD's been in a pursuit. You need to go out there. And so I thought, I wonder if that's Scott. So I got up and got dressed and drove out there, sure enough, it was Scott. And, you know, back then we had these trooper stickers, you know, we'd give people when they'd been in a tragic or, you know, emotional episode. So when I got out of my police car, got out there, I went and gave him one of those little badges.
So take us, I'm going to have both of you, and Ronnie, we'll start with you, kind of the different places. You've served a lot of different places within the patrol. Kind of take us through your career path and everything you've.
So after the academy in 1997, I got assigned to the Choctaw County of True B. I did that for about 2 years, and it was really, really fun. That was a time when in Choctaw County, the sheriff and all of his deputies had been indicted by the FBI for a lot of public corruption that was going on down there. And so a new sheriff had just come in, and there's a lot of good people down in that area of the state, but there's also a lot of people who took advantage of what the other sheriff was allowing people to do. So it was kind of like being patrolling the Wild Wild West there for a while. Left there 2 years and went back to Bryan County in Durant and worked the road there. I was got the first ACE award, which was a little award ceremony that we had with the patrol from activity. And then over in Durant, as I began to focus on the crash reconstruction classes. And then when the event data reporters and things like that came about, I went out and got certified in that and kind of, you know, delivered that to the patrol. And but I always saw that coming from a police department that we weren't doing a great job when it come to treating someone's traffic death like a homicide. We were treating it more like a crash scene. And through some advocating for some change there, we, you know, eventually got some fatality teams stood up. Mm-hmm. And then that morphed into, you know, 10, 12 years later, that morphed into, you know, having a full-time traffic homicide unit and things of that nature. So worked Bryan County for 7 years, and then I got transferred into Troop Z, and Troop Z that's our investigations division. And we started focusing on manhunt. So we had a significant manhunt that happened out. Scott spent many nights in the woods with the tactical team. We had a man that murdered a couple people over just outside Tulsa. And so what we call on the ground. We have him on the ground, means somebody seen him on the ground, and that's the last place he was. And so we had this big manhunt that went a long time, and we didn't catch the guy. And as soon as we pulled down our manhunt apparatus, that Saturday, then Sunday, he kidnapped someone, stole their car, and got out. So he was in our perimeter. And so obviously it costs a lot of money to run a 3-week manhunt with several hundred troopers out there and all types of aircraft and SWAT teams and all this type of stuff. So I got brought into the commissioner's office and said, honey, you've researched a lot of stuff on manhunts. We want to start a manhunt squad. And so I got into that, and that was so by having what I call the commissioner there. We set up a manhunt team. We bought mules and dogs, and so we got our tracking dogs from Mississippi, and so we'd run on a manhunt. We run on about 100 manhunts in about 3.5 years, and we caught every single person that we went after. So it was pretty successful. It was very successful at the time, but there's my way that I could edge myself up to the commissioner and say, hey, I think we can do a better job with prosecutable traffic fatalities. And so he let me go get all of our reports for the previous year, what we turned into the district attorney. And some were good, but most weren't. And what I mean by weren't, they weren't ready for what I call prosecution. It was more of a probable cause statement than it was a proof beyond a reasonable doubt case file. And so we started doing traffic death investigations out of Troop Z. And so after a few years of that, then we rebranded that traffic homicide. It became a troop within the Highway Patrol, and so probably the most rewarding thing about working prosecutable traffic deaths is when you go through the jury trial experience. And what I mean by that is you set what we call case agents, and you're setting with the prosecutor while they pick the jury, while they call all their witnesses to the witness stand. And then, obviously you end up with either guilty or not guilty. And I've been fortunate enough that I've got probably 50 jury trials behind me with 100% of the people at prison. And so I know that we have a way that if we follow a certain script that we will be, when I say successful, we're getting someone held accountable because they killed someone else. And now the family, who's also sitting in the courtroom, that is probably the most emotional time you'll ever have. But just, what it does for them for now, and it's just, that's probably the most rewarding thing I ever did was the traffic deaths. Yeah.
I know you're over evidence now.
Yes, and we evidence and communications.
That's right. Very good. All right, Scott, tell us kind of what your career has gone.
So I come out of patrol school and was sent to Ottawa County. Didn't have a clue where that was. Can still remember the day the chief stood up and gave that assignment, and I'm just probably as white as the flag on this table here. I immediately go upstairs and start looking at the panhandle, and I roll that out. One of my litter mates is laughing at me, and I find out that it's the northeast corner of Oklahoma by Joplin, Missouri. So went up there and was up there 4 years, so a lot longer than I thought I would be or planned to be, but wonderful, wonderful assignment. I was lucky while I was up there to get on the TAC team, so got on the tactical team. Just before that, I'd gotten on the honor guard, so I was able to be on the honor guard for a while. And the tactical team, of course, it's a wonderful opportunity. Our guys that are on that nowadays are way more capable. They're just physically amazing, and how they operate. So we were split up into two teams back then. There was a West TAC team and an East TAC team. I was on the East Tactical team. And just had a wonderful time getting to do that. Got to travel all over the state, got to be a part of some very large events, and still remember the night Nikki Green was killed because I was home visiting in Durant, and we got activated, and had to have one of my partners, because I always left everything prepped to where somebody could go get my gear. They drove my unit south, and I drove my truck north. And we met, I think, just south of Muskogee, to where I swapped vehicles and then proceeded over to Depew. And I'm sorry, not Depew, but down there just west of Lawton. Duval. And Depew was the very long manhunt. But went through some very significant events while assigned to that, and just blessed to have had that time to do that. Then while on the TAC team, we put 4 guys, full-time TAC team on that, so was able to be a part of that, and then was promoted lieutenant and assigned to Troop E. So stayed at Troop E, thoroughly enjoy the lieutenant's job, because most of us as troopers sat back going, and if I ever get a chance, I'm going to try and make things a little bit better for me and my partners. And I like to think all of us that promote, that's what we're doing it for. And I enjoyed my time. You always make a lot of mistakes when you promote, and till you learn what you're doing. And stayed a lieutenant there for right at 10 years, and then was promoted to captain and went to Troop D. Stayed up there for just right at 2 years, and then was assigned back to Troop B. And I've thoroughly enjoyed my career. When I got off the TAC team, I got on ERT, stayed on ERT for about 2 or 3 years. Went through Reconstruction School in the early 2000s and was part of Troop L's Reconstruction team, and then Troop E's when I was at E. And just blessed to get to work for all the guys that are currently assigned at E, and they are some hard workers. They really do a great job. And
you guys just won a unit citation for the DUI arrests.
They had the most DUI arrests of any troop in the state, and which is significant when we have half the manpower of some of the troops. And that's the other troops are just busy, and everybody's shorthanded. And I'm just proud to say that these guys, they kicked tail. They were working hard, and threw a lot of people in jail, arrested a lot of impaired drivers, and they'll never know what differences we made, but they made a huge difference.
I've got a question here real quick. What did your dad think about you guys becoming troopers? I know he was a sheriff, and it's a little bit different job. What did he think about you guys stepping into wearing a brown shirt?
There's probably that's probably at the top of the list for him, because he applied for the patrol, and when they did his background check, my mom said, they said, you're probably going to go to Wilburton. And she said, I'm not going to move to Wilburton, and that cut him out.
No.
And but he has all the craze in the world. He and I, we visit a lot, and that's one of the things that what was very interesting about that is he was a police officer in the 60s and the 70s, and obviously sheriff in the 80s. But going back to the 60s and 70s, he'll tell me every time, he said, if it wasn't been for the highway patrol, he said, we couldn't do our job. He said, and it's very interesting because now sheriff's departments have, even some of the most rural sheriff's departments may have 7 or 8, 10, 15 deputies. Back then, there was one trooper and one deputy.
Yeah.
And so the trooper relied on the deputy to help them with car wrecks, and then the deputies relied on the troopers when they had to go to the river. And when I say the river, there in Oklahoma, in Bryan County, where we grew up, they had what was called the Strip. So from Colbert over to Cartwright, which is bordering right along the state line, Texas closed their bars at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay, which we do now. Then we didn't. That didn't come about till 1982. So in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people who were already drunk leaving bars in Texas at 2 o'clock flooded into Oklahoma and was able to run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there was usually at least one murder along that strip, one murder every week, right, and numerous shootings. And so the deputies relied on the troopers, and the troopers relied on the deputies. And just for me, listening to him tell me that story, and now knowing, it really was. I really think that is what made the patrol, because we took care of our business, but we always backed up the local police and sheriffs, and when they ask us to, and but we don't try to get in their way.
Yeah.
So Scott, I know you have 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. So growing up, as with both parents being highway patrol troopers,
yes.
What do they think about that? I know one of them's studying to be a pilot, right?
Yes. She's studying to be a pilot, and went through the last cadet lawman. Absolutely loved it. And she is my quiet, more reserved child. And just loved cadet lawman. Coming back this year as junior staff, left cadet lawman last year going, I think I wouldn't mind being a trooper. And of course, me and Mom's both like, I bet you think of something else. And she's like, no, I'd like to do it and be on motors. And because I ride a motorcycle, and they grew up on motorcycles. So I think she would do it. Obviously, I've enjoyed my career, but I would rather her, maybe find a different direction, especially chase the pilot thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they're resilient. Obviously, I can think back of times when both on call for different areas. On a few occasions, both get called out for different events at the same time. And I can think of one event, we had a pursuit in Johnston County, and Ashley was the trooper in pursuit. Subject runs off. We set up a manhunt. I'm a neighboring supervisor, and we're back that troop, and we're out all night, so we have to call and wake my mom up for when we get called out. She has to go next door and stay with the kids. So just a tougher lifestyle. They're tough, and they've seen car crashes. I bet 6 months ago, me and my oldest drove up, unfortunately, off duty on a fatality crash. And I just jump out and start going to work till our trooper gets there. And as tragic as all those instances are, it's a stark reminder to specifically our kids of how dangerous our roadways are. And that day it made a lasting impression on her. So yeah, they've done awesome jobs, and very proud of them.
Why do you say you don't want her to do that? Is this because of the inherent danger that comes with your job?
Our troopers nowadays have a very tough job. One, public sentiment has shifted in the last 10 years as they view law enforcement around the country. I'll always say where we live, we're blessed because our communities really haven't done that. We have a great support network from our communities, but it's a lifestyle that comes with challenges. You miss family events, you work holidays. To this day, I blur weekends and holidays together when I'm visiting with people because it's a work day. So, but the main thing is, obviously there's inherent dangers to this job, and every one of us sign up for that every day we leave the house. And I'd be proud as all get out, but I'd also love for her to chase being a pilot because I think it'd be a very, very fun job.
She could be a pilot for the Highway Patrol?
She could. Yeah, she actually was lucky enough to, of course, go up in our plane at Cadet Lawman, and yeah, she's enjoyed her exposure to the patrol.
Yeah, very cool. So we've asked some other people this, like when you guys do get together for holidays or something like that, is there a lot of shop talk that goes on? Do you try to stay away from that at family gatherings?
I can speak with me and him. We both thoroughly love the patrol, and it's a big part of our lives. And yeah, we always end up talking patrol when we're off, but we also end up visiting about stuff that's went on with family and just enjoying time together.
But when you say holidays, it really reminds me of how many times on holidays, for instance, probably 18 years ago, we were at my mom's house, all sat down to have Thanksgiving dinner together, and Ashley was on call, and there was a fatality crash a mile down the road. A young man lost control of his truck, rolled over. He didn't have his seatbelt on. The cab got on his head, killed him. And me and Scott went down there with her, and it was literally it was the person who saw the crash, the person who died, and the three of us, out on this dirt county road. And I just remember, thinking as we were sitting there, I thought, there's not too many people that spend their Thanksgiving doing this.
Yeah, you were still with family, right?
Well, we were, and in some ways, and then that, like I said, there's been, I know, 2 different Christmases where Ashley's caught fatalities on two different, Christmas Eves, 2 different Christmas Eves, and so I mean that's I don't know. it's kind of, weird because most people don't do that on their.
That's a different family dynamic.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then your mom is upset because half the family got up and left.
Right.
Right. She lost half her guests.
You don't need to schedule your Thanksgiving dinner and then a makeup day for Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yes.
Right, a couple backups. Put the food in the warmer. We'll be back.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure you guys are proud to have this be a family legacy. I'm sure it's a source of pride for you guys.
It is.
Yep. It is. Yeah. Very fun. Very just. Somebody just, it was 2 days ago at the gym, a guy that was a Arkansas National Guard member, he was visiting with me, and of course I'm always on a recruiting spill, and he's like, well, how long have you done? And I was like, well, I'm starting 26 years. And I mean, honestly, I am lucky, we're both lucky, getting to do a career that you really sit back and go, they're paying me to do this. Just 2 days ago, our troopers were in court, and I go take a crash up on 69, and about a 10-15 mile drive up to it, and it was roadway blocked, so we're going up there with lights and siren on, and just a blast. Absolute very good time. I'm a oddball, I guess, when it comes to that stuff, because I've always enjoyed crashes. It's not, I would love for us to never respond to another one, but that's not reality. And but I've always enjoyed investigating them and trying to figure out what's going on, and just really some of the hard ones, what I've enjoyed about the reconstruction side of things. But yeah, just blessed to get to do this job.
Very good. Fully appreciate you guys joining us for this.
Yeah, very much.